You could hardly imagine, like in 1988, that you'd end up in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, given the way that a lot of people reacted to the band when it came out.
Yeah, I would never think that we would get there. You know, I would never think that people would ever look at us other than, you know, thugs, you know, hoodlums, just foul-mouthed and, you know, what they call ghetto.
Right.
You know, it feels great. It feels like we were right. Everybody else was wrong. We were right.
You made this point about how like rock and roll is not about the instruments you play, you know, that it's about an attitude.
I mean, it's a spirit. You know, I think, you know, the blues has that spirit. I think jazz has that spirit. Of course, you know, traditional rock and roll, punk rock, and rap, hip hop, you know, has that spirit of we're not gonna conform to what music say we should conform to. We are outside the box. We do things outside the box. We do it how we feel it. And I think music is always evolving.
You got Grandmaster Flash, the Furious Five, Run DMC, the Beastie Boys, Public Enemy, and now you guys, that's, you know, comes up to, if my counting is right, you're the fifth hip hop act to make it into the Hall. Is that like is that enough?
Well, I mean, I believe it's some solo artists that deserve to be in there. You know, and you know, I probably have a laundry list, but to me, that just speaks that you know, hip hop needs its own Hall of Fame on this level, and you know, we'll put in a couple rock and roll acts.
So you're not playing, right? You're not.
No,
you guys are not going to play. So how's it you guys ended up not actually ended up on stage tonight? That was one of the reasons I was going to go.
Yeah, I mean, it just never happened. You know, it's like when you got Dr. Dre, and me and Ren and Yella. You know, we wanted to do it real big, and I guess we was the only ones that really wanted to do it on the level that we wanted to do it. So it just couldn't happen. So we felt like if we couldn't put on the best show for the people that we possibly could, then it's probably better for us to just go enjoy the night and have fun with it.
So I saw that interview you did in the Times, referred you as a brash, political gangster rap. That was how he described N.W.A, right? So yeah. I just want to think about the word political in there. Like when you guys started out, did you think of yourselves as a political act? What were the politics of N.W.A?
No, I mean, we said you're about to witness the strength of street knowledge, meaning you are about to witness, you know, a knowledge coming off the streets or out the streets that you may not have ever witnessed before. We just wanted to be real. We just wanted to be honest. Street knowledge is a term to me. It means letting the streets know what the government, politics, police, whatever authority figures are doing up to, exposing them, and also letting, if the politicians are listening, letting them know what the streets think and how things are going, and hopefully there's some understanding that can be made in all this.
You became like a flashpoint in a lot of ways. What was that like to experience that? And when you look back on it now, does it seem totally crazy to you that like you guys were at the center of so much controversy?
Yeah, it was weird. And we didn't think the world cared what was going on in Compton, South Central, Watts, Long Beach. We didn't think nobody cared, but to speak on it and to do music and to get all this recognition, it was great. But also, we had to realize and grow up real fast because we felt the powers that be were kind of converging on us, you know, at the time. And it became a freedom of speech issue. And you had people really trying to shut down music on that level, you know, really talking about taking it to Congress and doing things like that. You know, you had, you know, people from, you know, PMRC, you know, led by Tipper Gore, and, you know, you had C. Dolores Tucker and, you know, countless other people coming out the woodworks really trying to say that, you know, music was the cause of all evil in the world. And we knew that wasn't true. And so the compromise that was made was to put the parental advisory stickers on the records to show parents, okay, these records contain subject matter that might not be cool for your kids to hear.
But I'm sort of surprised, given all the stuff that's going on, the Black Lives Matter stuff and Ferguson and all that stuff, I'm surprised there's not more political hip hop now. It doesn't seem like, it surprises me that there's not more acts who are doing what you guys were doing, being more in the social commentary business in some way, like it was in the late 80s, early 90s.
Well, it's not rewarded at all. It's not rewarded on radio. It's not rewarded, if you go political and go hardcore with it, you just really kind of, set yourself straight into the underground. This was back in about 93.
Yeah.
Gatekeepers of the airwaves started to say, that kind of political rap, we're really not gonna play that. That's not really in style. And they started to play and promote the escapism kind of rap, sex, drugs, money, cars, women, clothes, clubbing. Just all the excess became more popular and more exposed. So you have new hip hoppers saying, how do I get famous? Well, it's not like Public Enemy. It's not like Boogie Down Productions, because I'm not seeing their stuff as much anymore. It's more like the new stuff that's coming on, that mafioso kind of rap start taking over. And it just kind of like, it creates its own weather. It was about a 10-year window, 85 to 95, of just pure variety and greatness.
Right. So the movie comes out last year, right? Straight Outta Compton, and it comes out at this moment when you got Ferguson, Baltimore, Staten Island, all these incidents of police brutality, and it was like a lot of the stuff that you guys were talking about in 1988, 1989 was suddenly like super relevant again to a bunch of stuff that was going on, right?
In a lot of ways, it's a shame that the same thing we were going through is the same thing that's still happening, and not too much has changed with the behavior of the authorities on just realizing that it's not cool to prey on your own citizens. It's just never cool.
So the movie was a huge success. A lot of people thought it was going to get some Academy Award nominations and didn't, right? You were proud of the movie, right?
I'm very proud.
Your son's in it, right?
Yeah.
Well, it was part of the controversy around the Oscars this year, right? The Oscars so white thing. Does that look to you like institutional racism? Do you look at the Academy and think, they got a race problem?
I wouldn't say, it's institutional racism. It's just the way it's been, and it's the way it is, and it has to change. But that's the finish line. The Oscars is the finish line. It has to change at the starting line. That's where it has to change. We have to get, more movies greenlit and better quality movies greenlit. Straight Outta Compton movie was great because of the quality we was able to put into it, and still the movie costs under $30 million. It's a shame, you would, if you really put it in context, if they were doing Rolling Stones movie or, $30 million would probably be the wardrobe. So
you need more black studio executives, more black producers, more black, film financiers, more like the whole structure of the industry. They just need to be more inclusive to their audience. Right. Their audience is totally diverse across the board, and they want to see stories about themselves.
So the thing is, you want to service your customers with what they want, and of course we believe that the black experience in America or in the world is definitely movie worthy, and we want to tell more stories so people can understand who we are, just like we can understand who the Oscar so white people are.
Right. Yeah. Understand that pretty well.
Yeah.
We were talking about barbershop. You're wearing the T-shirt, the next cut,
Yeah.
right? Just coming out now. Talk about the way in which the gang violence that's happening in Chicago now is kind of a backdrop for the movie.
Well, you can't really do an authentic movie about a barbershop on the south side of Chicago without talking about what's happening right outside the doors, dealing with the same problems our audience is dealing with. Calvin has a 14-year-old son now. He's trying to keep him out the streets, which is very universal to any parent trying to keep their kid on the right track. So,
One of the things that was going on in the summer, like I said last summer when Straight Outta Compton came out, was the beginning of this Black Lives Matter movement.
One race in the culture is being treated pretty unfairly, and it's probably more than one. It's probably a few that are being treated pretty unfairly by the system. So that has to be addressed. And I think the fact that you even have to say Black Lives Matter lets you know how bad the problem is. And I know a lot of people blur the lines and say, well, do Black lives matter to Black people? Of course they do, and they talk about black on black crime, but all communities commit crime against their own. Yeah. So there's white on white crime, it's Mexican on Mexican crime, Chinese on Chinese, Japanese on Japanese, Indian on Indian, whatever. Right. Everybody does that. So what we're talking about and what they're talking about in Black Lives Matter is the government killing citizens. That is a whole different texture and a whole different argument, and it's apples and oranges to me. When the government is against you, who's with you in the country? That's the thing that people who don't understand the Black Lives Matter movement need to understand. When you feel that the government is against you, who's going to be with you?
Bill Clinton was giving a speech down in Philadelphia and had a bunch of Black Lives Matter protesters came in and tried to shout him down. And they're upset. They remember back in the 90s when Hillary Clinton, running for president now, talked about gang members as super predators, mm-hmm. and had used that kind of rhetoric to justify the notion of a lot of the tough crime policies that her husband and the Congress and all those people passed. Mm-hmm. Super predator. That's like the kind of stuff people used to say about the guys in N.W.A, right? And the culture that you guys represented. It seems crazy that we're still having this conversation in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, things haven't changed. Like with the movie I said, the more things change, the more they stay the same. To call your own citizens super predators is pretty harsh and it's pretty big indictment. It's just like the term thug or hoodlum, it's just an easy brush to paint somebody with, and it's really not solving the problem. It's just making it worse because now you have, the people or the authorities feel like, okay, now they're justified at how they treat these so-called super predators. And what is that? Who is that? I mean, specifically, who are you talking about? Because, the thing back in the 80s, Daryl Gates and the LAPD, they did a war on gangs.
Right, sure.
But if I'm a Black kid that's not in a gang and but I look like a gang member to this white officer, then it's a war on me. So that's the problem with a term like super predators. Right. And for some reason, the Democrats feel like they're exempt from these protests. Like, we're Democrats. Why are you talking to us like this? Go talk to the Republicans. No. Everybody's a little guilty of putting, of turning their back or passing bad legislation, and everybody should be called out on it.
That still makes sense to you that conversation's still happening. Like the Black Lives Matter wants to prosecute that case. That seems like still totally legitimate.
Of course. Yeah. Of course, because she might be the president of the United States, and if she becomes the president of the United States, we need to know what she's thinking. How does she think? How's she gonna handle this? How's she gonna fix this? She helped create it in a way. How are you gonna fix this?
You got a point of view about Donald Trump?
Well, Donald Trump is what Americans love. Donald Trump is what Americans aspire to be. Rich, powerful, do what you want to do, say what you want to say, be how you want to be. That's kind of been like the the American dream. So he looks like a boss to everybody, and Americans love to have a boss. So, you know, that's his appeal to me. You know, do I think he's gonna do anything to help poor people or people that's struggling? No, because, you know, he's a rich white guy. How can he relate? You know, and he's always been rich. And, you know, being rich don't make you bad. I ain't saying that, but I'm just saying, how can he relate?
Right.
How can he relate to the small guy?
For a lot of people, like when Trump, even before he ran for president 4 years ago, when he was like one of the leaders of the birther movement and was loudly going around saying that President Obama was not legitimate president and that he was born in Kenya. For a lot of people, that's like, that man's a racist. Do you feel like that?
I'm still mad he took down the USFL. I think that was a cool league,
Right.
especially for the summer. But anyway.
Yeah.
Nah, man, you know, it's like, he sounded crazy to me then.
Yeah.
You know, I could see raising the question, but once you get the answer, man, move on. You know, to still harp on it and to lie that you're sending investigators and all this stuff to me was just a guy who couldn't say that he was wrong.
Right. And what do you think about, you got any thoughts about Bernie Sanders? You feeling the burn at all? Guy talking about the 1%.
I mean, you know,
calling for a political revolution.
To me, it's like he's been in there 30 years, and you know, what have you done? What have you done? You've been there. You've been up in there. So what are you gonna do different from a whole, you know, from outside Congress? Now you're in, you know, what's gonna happen different? Where you been? You know, so all of them to me got work to do to get my vote.
What should they be talking about, right? I mean, again, does it mean talking about a lot of the stuff that Black Lives Matter cares about most? Talking about like trying to fix the problems in big cities, dealing with police issues, dealing with mass incarceration, all that kind of stuff. Is that the kind of stuff that matters? That's got to have a bigger place in the campaign, in your opinion?
Yeah. Well, it's not just saying it or not just mentioning what needs to be done. It's like, I need to see how. What's the plan? I need to believe in your plan. If I don't see it or believe it, it's just politician lip service to me. Because I can sit up there and stand up there and say, we need more jobs. We need better health care.
If you were going to be a politician, you do that pretty well. We need more jobs.
I need to, you know, get my point together. You gotta have a good point. Either this or that.
Yeah,
this,
right.
That.
The finger thing, so yeah, that's key.
Donald should.
It's almost the end of the Obama administration. You feel like he's been a success? You feel like there's
Yeah,
still...
I feel like he's been a great president.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, he's dealing with, for one thing, dealing with the recession and the collapse and all that, and, you know, holding the country together really, you know, in that way. But, you know, Congress haven't worked with him to be able to do some of these great things, you know. And I was real disappointed in the Blue Dog Democrats, and I was real disappointed in the Congressional Black Caucus. Where you been all these 8 years? You know, it's like, where you at? Why you not out helping the man achieve the things that he was trying to get done? And I just felt like this Congress treated him like a black kid who goes to an all-white school. They won't play with him. They won't play with him.